Greetings. It is Thursday, June the 11th, in the rather substantial year of 2026. I'm Thomas Caldwell of the Aurelian Column, and this is the Midweek Report. Well, the U.S. and Israel are hitting Iran, and they are hitting it hard. There have been all sorts of reports of strikes throughout the Islamic Republic of the once great nation of Iran. Reports are still sketchy, but President Trump says the United States will seize Kharg Island. For those of you who aren't aware, that's the main export facility for oil that the country uses. Bandar Abbas, which is Iran's key port facility, has also been hit by U.S. forces. The Israelis are doing what they do best, which is going after leadership, in other words, assassination. This seems to be the final push to send the Islamic Republic back into the abyss from which it emerged in 1979. Now, there are a lot of videos coming out. All they basically are things that people have taken in Iran with their cell phones and showing fires or showing smoke or something like that. So we really don't know what is being hit or how hard. In spite of all the talking heads you're seeing up on social media or on the mainstream media, until this is actually over, we're not going to know how things have gone. It will be interesting if the U.S. does take over Kharg Island, but why they would announce it ahead of time, well, that's a little, you don't know what's being played here. Donald Trump gave a deadline about 60 days ago. A lot of people aren't noticing that, and this seems to be what he was paying attention to, and the Iranians weren't. You know, the Iranians basically don't have a central government anymore. That's apparent. There's one side that says they want to talk, another side that says they doesn't. There's a lot of infighting. And, of course, the people are in the streets in some places, wanting to be armed, taking arms. At least that's what the reports are. The Kurds in Iraq were supposed to be delivering weapons. The Americans gave them to give to the Iranians. They kept them for themselves. And, well, let's just hope that the CIA decides to extract a little bit of revenge if that is what was the case. I mean, you can't really trust people in that part of the world anyways. So, but you can also accept betrayal. The U.S. is being brutal, and that's what superpowers are. Like it or not, and we have a civilization that runs on petroleum. Do expect prices to go up because the Iranians are talking about the Straits of Hormuz being shut down again. In reality, they don't really shut it down. It's shut down by the insurance companies out of London and elsewhere that decide that they're not going to cover any losses if anyone tries to make the run for it. That is something that needs to be looked at when this is all over, how international insurance can be held hostage by, well, bad guys. Anyways, expect things to be developing by the hour, by the day. But I do believe, and I've been saying this all along, this has never been about oil. It has not been even about nuclear. It's about getting rid of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Now, meanwhile, speaking of turmoil, Belfast is burning. Belfast, Northern Ireland, part of the United Kingdom, and it appears that it will continue to burn for some time. That's 2 nights of fires and revenge being extracted upon the so-called asylum seekers, otherwise known as foreign invaders. This follows the brutal attempted decapitation of a white Irishman by a Sudanese man who really had no business being in the country. It isn't yet a murder. The man did lose a left eye, but I haven't seen any reports that he's actually died. Still, the crowds are going after the tenements where these foreigners have been put up by the government at great expense. And, well, frankly, they've just about had it. The brutal murder of Henry Novak in England apparently was the lighting of the fuse to what is now exploding in Ulster. Now, this could spread to the Irish Republic as well, an independent country, but one that is still occupying the same island, especially since they've been enjoying the fruits of diversity for some time now, courtesy of their communist government. And they are just as angry and as fed up as their brothers and sisters to the north. Remember this, the Irish can be a most violent and multi-talented race, capable of creating great literature and poetry while fighting their enemies like demons from hell. One can only guess at how many of the old Armalite rifles from the times now referred to in history books as the Troubles may be pulled out of storage and employed again with deadly determination. An old song, I believe from the 1960s, called My Little Armalite might be something to dig up on YouTube or elsewhere to hear how they can take something like military action and put it to music. And speaking of racial killings, Carmelo Anthony was found guilty of murder and sentenced to 35 years in a Texas prison. The death penalty was off the table from the beginning because he was of the tender age of 17 when he maliciously stabbed a white student in the chest at a high school track meet for no good reason. A substantial portion of the black community of Texas and the rest of the country is showing what they're made of, which is really not very good stuff. The outcome of the trial was really a foregone conclusion, given all the evidence, and, well, basically it was just silly, but we have a process in this country which separates us from savages, and even if savages are the people we have to put on trial. Mr. Anthony will be in prison for a while. Depending on who you believe, he may or may not survive it. But again, you can tell a lot about a country from its prison system, has been pointed out in many times in history. And we'll see how that goes. Now, it's become obvious, not just because of Mr. Anthony, but also other people in recent years that have died, black men who've died or committed murder. It's become obvious that the racial divide in this country is, over time, becoming much worse and not better. And the total illogic of the race-baiting grifters all of us are all too familiar with on TV and in social media, they're not going to go away anytime soon, nor will their rather inflammatory and destructive message, all to make money out of racial differences in the United States that have been there since the beginning. Now, this is important to keep in mind. Remember that everything has its limits, with patience and restraint being at the top of the list. The people of this country of European extraction, otherwise known as white people, how far will they be pushed before they really push back? The poem by Kipling, When the Saxon Hates, is something to read about. And understand that that DNA level consideration of things is still there. And even though people of African descent have been part of our story since the beginning, a portion of that community is pushing this country more and more towards a conflict. It will suffer greatly. And that has to stop. So for those of you out there who are waking up to what is going on, and you are in a position, especially in your own communities, to put a stop to it, now is the time to do so. Little Mr. Anthony was a thug. He's a punk. He got 35 years in prison. Arguably, the death penalty would have been more appropriate. But this cannot go on. And you know something? It won't. You've been hearing all these stories about ticks being dropped from helicopters or let loose in farmers' fields or things like that. Ticks that have I don't know the name of it. It's a condition in which you have something that stops you from eating meat or other animal products. There's also Lyme disease, which is another one. There's a lot of nasty diseases you can get from ticks. And I do spend a lot of my time in the woods, and I go hiking a lot, and I always take precautions. And I haven't really noticed anything different until just a couple of days ago, which was rather strange. And I'm not an expert at insects or how they function, at least not what I saw. I drive around a lot. I work out of my car. I travel to different places to do writing and reporting and other projects. And I was stopped at a rest stop not that long ago, a couple days ago. And I have a sunroof, a moonroof. It's a clear window at the top of the car, which can be quite nice while driving on a highway. And it was raining outside, and I was just, taking a break and leaning back in the driver's seat and looking up, and what did I see in the rain was a tick crawling across the window at the top. Even though it was raining, it wasn't raining that hard. I got out of the car and looked up there, took some pictures to see what type of tick it was, but I have never heard of ticks outside of wooded areas or grassy areas or places with grass. This is in the middle of a rest stop on an interstate highway. It's raining. There's no trees within easy reach, but there's a tick there in rain. And I didn't take it. I ended up dispatching it because it looked like it might try to crawl into the vehicle through something, and I didn't want to take that chance. But that is not something that's normal. It didn't appear to be a Lone Star tick, the one that is supposed to be making filet mignon a fatal disease. But there is something going on, people. There is something going on. What it is, I don't know. A good journalist is skeptical, and I'm going to be skeptical about this. But if anyone wants to get back to me through the usual means, I'd love to hear from you on this. Now, this is what I'm going to close with today, which could or could not be responsible for my little guess the other day, and that is the forces of darkness that are out there are real, and they do not mean us well. Now, the question is, are there private institutions involved in nefarious activities with the aim of poisoning us just so that we start eating bugs, so that we stop reproducing, so that we accept the annoying ongoing hum of AI data centers as the new normal? And believe me, I've seen a lot of those. Well, maybe. We don't really know unless there's real solid evidence presented, and that's something that civilized people operate on. Solid evidence. But it's something that needs to be looked for. And if you see something looking like a duck and quacking like a duck, true, it might be a pigeon, but it also still might be a duck. Now, if it's true that these institutions do exist, or if there's government agencies or any of these things that you hear about, if they exist, they and the beings behind them must be eliminated from our midst, however it's done. Something like that is imposing changes on our bodies against our will. Well, that goes beyond anything that would have been presented at Nuremberg, realistically. It can't be tolerated, nor will it be. I'm not sure if that little tick was just there by accident, or if it had been dropped, or if I'd been bitten by one even. I'm not even sure about that. But humans have had way too much horror as of late in our history, especially the last 150 years. And that needs to end. The only reason that's happened is there are people at the top that believe that they know better than we do, and in reality, they are the worst of the worst. So be vigilant, people. Really. Now more than ever. That's it for today. If you appreciate my work, please like, subscribe, and share. Share with your friends and share with your enemies. And enemies exist, believe me. I've had a few. I can be reached at feedback@aureliancolumn.com. That's feedback@aureliancolumn.com. I'm up on X. My handle there is MICCAMPEN. That's MICCAMPEN. This podcast originates at Substack. My handle there is aureliancolumn.substack.com. Until we meet again, be good, be safe, be vigilant, and remember, Clown World, the deep state, and all those nasty little ticks out there that could poison us must be destroyed. Good day.